York's classic rock, Q1043.
Ken Dash out here at Q104.3, New York's classic rock. A man I've had the honor and pleasure to meet time and time again through the years. A rock god to me, Edgar Winter. Welcome to Q104.3. How are you?
Thank you, Ken. I'm ready to rock and roll.
You always are. From benefits to seeing you at the BB Kings to Ringo and the All-Stars. And the reason we're talking now is there is an album that's out, very simply called Brother Johnny. And there's a large part of the audience I don't even have to explain any more than that. But this, to me, is for anybody who doesn't know what the words Brother Johnny means. So, and we love you and welcome because we've got a whole new audience listening to classic rock. Edgar and Johnny Winter came from Texas, and they just rocked the world. Johnny's guitar playing, slide, blues was like nothing like anything else. And Edgar carved out his own niche, and to have that big hit that will last forever, Frankenstein. I remember hearing it as a single, and it goes on and on and on. Edgar, why do this tribute album to your brother with an all-star cast? Why do it now?
Well, I was concerned about it for some time. Shortly after Johnny's passing, I was approached by a number of companies, and it just didn't feel right to me. They asked questions like, how long is it going to take? And what guest stars can you guarantee? And it just seemed like more like business people exploiting Johnny's name and memory just to sell some records. And I also, honestly, I was devastated. I was just not ready. I was not prepared emotionally to make the record. But as time went on, I began to realize that it was just not these people, but Johnny's true, loyal, and devoted fans that really wanted to hear this record. It seemed like the universe was crying out for it. And I want to thank three people. First of all, my wife, Monique, to whom I've been happily and blissfully married now for some 43 years.
Yeah, nice.
For rock and rollers.
Nice.
In the state of California, no less. But
you're the only ones ever.
Since I was in doubt about it, she was very definite. She said, well, you're always talking about how Johnny is your all-time musical hero, and were it not for him, you wouldn't be where you are today. Well, here's your opportunity to acknowledge that. You owe it to yourself, to Johnny, to the world. And she couldn't have been more right in every respect about that. I also want to thank the engineer, mixer, producer, the guy who really became the co-creator of this album, Ross Hogarth. And Ross, he put his whole heart and soul into this record. He had so many suggestions in terms of the material and guest artists, people that I never would have thought of. He suggested Taylor Hawkins, to sing on Guess I'll Go Away. He suggested John McPhee from the Doobie Brothers to play the slide on Highway 61. Doyle Bramhall Jr., who plays with Eric Clapton. It just wouldn't be the album it is without Ross. And finally, I want to thank the president of Quarto Valley Records, Bruce Quarto, who believed in the project from the very beginning. And, he wanted to make the album for all the right reasons, to bring Johnny's music to the world, for all those people that may remember Johnny and had forgotten about him, or people that possibly never have even heard Johnny's music. So there you have it.
Edgar, going through your brother's catalog, there's an emotional connection to it. It's like going through, your house. It's like looking at books and looking at clothing, and you're going through the music. But what an all-star cast that came together for this. Billy Gibbons, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Michael McDonald. And this is just a few. And then the boys from the All-Star Band, your All-Star Band, Joe Walsh, Steve Lukather, Ringo Starr playing on it, but Taylor Hawkins, not playing drums, but singing. One of the crushing losses in rock and roll, his spirit, his energy. You know, the true measure of it, it's not what a rock critic says, Edgar, but every human being, every musician who ever met this guy said the same thing. In 5 seconds, he was my best friend in the world. We texted all the time. From the smallest people to the biggest people, I never met anyone so loving and gracious and helpful. My God, what was it like working with Taylor Hawkins?
Well, you've pretty much just described it to a T. I had never met Taylor, and the song that he sings on, Guess I'll Go Away, it was a song that Johnny wrote just before going into rehab, and it's sort of a cautionary song, the lure of sex, the danger of drugs, and the love of rock and roll. Pretty your standard sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of lyrics. And it is, there are 17 tracks on the album, and a lot of it is traditional blues and a lot of rock, but this is the one song that is, I think, possibly the best song Johnny ever wrote in terms of being a modern rock song. I mean, it is really heavy. It's you know, it's almost like Van Halen or Foo Fighters, and there's no other track on the album that really has that same vibe. So when it came to the vocal, I wanted a younger approach and somebody that would really give it some attitude. And Ross suggested Taylor, and I said, "Oh man, I love the Foo Fighters. That is absolutely perfect." And you know, when he got to the studio, he was so focused, so together. It was as though, like, I felt like there was nowhere else in the world he would rather be than right there at that time. And you know, I tried to engage him in a business discussion, and he just would not hear of it. He said, Edgar, he said, "I love Johnny. I love this song. I really identify with this song. I don't want anything for doing this. I just want to get out there and rock." And man, rock he did.
Wow,
And
that's just
it's, yeah,
oh,
that's who he is. And I I
you,
just, it makes me, it just makes me so sad that I never had the opportunity to get to know him and to thank him properly, as he so deeply deserved for what he did. Is he really put his heart and soul into that song. And
Taylor. I hope
uh,
you're feeling and hearing this now because you want to talk about heavy, a song about that Johnny writes for a man who lost his life to drugs in the prime of it all. Give a listen to this. Guess I'll Go Away, featuring Taylor Hawkins singing on Brother Johnny, Edgar Winter's tribute, Q104.3, New York's classic rock. That was beautiful. Now I'm going to pick it up and we'll do some Beatles and stuff.
you got it.
Guess I'll Go Away from the tribute album out now called Brother Johnny that Edgar Winter and this all-star cast put together, Q104.3, New York's classic rock. We could spend the rest of the evening telling stories that people have told us about Taylor Hawkins or yours. I never had the honor of meeting him. And it's one of the sadness that I'll never, hopefully I meet him someday, some on another plane. But the story that really hit me, a friend worked at Guitar Center out in LA. And whenever he's in town, Taylor Hawkins would go into the drum room on Saturdays and hang out with the guys, the young people playing drums. Hey, what's your band? Let me know. Hey, does you have a website? Let me hear. Play a little something for me. And they're trying out kits, a beautiful kit. And my friend had just started working there a couple of months, and he was, business, making sure of accounts and all that. And he noticed that Taylor Hawkins was never buying anything, and they were charging him like $30,000, $40,000, a week. And he went to the manager. He said, "Hey, listen, I'm the new guy. I don't want to make waves, but that guy's never buying anything. And are we burning his account? Are we just like charging him because he won't know the difference?" And the manager smiled and said, "Sit down. Take a look at what he's buying." "What?" He goes, "He's buying all those kids, the drum kits that they're playing on, and buying it and telling us
Oh,
to send it to
wow.
your house." Edgar, I got nothing
That,
else. I tear up. I can't even.
you know, that's such a great, tribute to who he was. Taylor was born 1972, the year that I recorded Frankenstein,
Oh,
and
wow.
he passed away uh, 2 days after Monique's and my 43rd wedding
Oh,
anniversary. March the like ours is March 23rd, and Taylor passed on the 25th. And it's so ironic that he would be doing this tribute to Johnny, and that then before the album is even released, he himself passes away under such similar circumstances, in a hotel room on the road. Johnny in Switzerland, and Taylor in Bogota. But it's just so ironic, and indicative of a lot of the things that happened in this album. There was a sort of a sense of destiny about it, and certain things that just aligned, so many spiritual interconnections that I can't begin to explain all of. But it's like a tribute within a tribute, and you know, Taylor,
yeah.
will all miss him, and it's, I'm sure, uh, it's it's one of the songs uh, that when I hear it now, uh, when I listen to the album, and I don't usually listen to my own albums. It seems to me, uh, you know, the height of self-indulgence. But this album, uh, it gets me every time. Every time I put it on, it's as though it's not really my album, it's Johnny's album. I'm just another guy on it. But like, this is the music I grew up on, and these are the songs that taught me and Johnny how to play. People uh like Ray Charles, the Stones, uh, uh Bob Dylan,
Yeah.
Chuck Berry, and these songs were, for many of us, the soundtracks to our early lives. And, it's just, every time I put it on, I get this almost otherworldly sense of spiritual connection.
You have to.
And
That's what
yeah,
that's the best that music brings us, is that spiritual connection. That's what the Beatles are to me. Sunday mornings, breakfast with the Beatles. This show's been going for 20 something years. More people talk about that to me, to the station, than anything. And about half the listeners are under 20. Now,
hmm
it's the thing about Beatles music that always blows me away, is that, listen, everybody loves their pop icons of their day. But, just doing the math, it would be like in 1967, Stardust by Hoagie Carmichael is a teenager's favorite record. It can't happen. But here we are in 2022. Edgar Winter, you're touring with the All-Star Band. You see the crowds, you see the age range from 8 to 80.
yeah,
You
yeah.
see 4 generations now of bands, sometimes 5 and everybody knows every word, every song. Um, Tell me what it's like being on the road with Ringo and the All-Star Band.
Well, first, a few words about the Beatles, and you've already set it up. But the Beatles are in a class unto themselves. They're, to me, a phenomenon bigger than music. They changed the mindset of an entire generation, and they brought about a revolution without having to fire a shot, because it was a revolution of the mind, of the heart, of the spirit. And uh, Ringo himself, like, whoever would have thought that a guy from Beaumont, Texas, little town there, I never even dreamed that I would get to meet the Beatles, much less, play, uh, share the stage, with, uh, with, with two of them. And the story that comes back to me most vividly was on Ringo's 70th birthday. We were playing
Oh,
Radio City
I was there.
Music Hall.
I was
You
there.
were there.
Oh,
And there was this surprise that was planned for Ringo, which he didn't know anything about. So we had walked off stage and we were coming back on to do the encore. And then walking toward me is Sir Paul McCartney and Joe Walsh. And I just like, Paul strapped on his Hofner and da 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 and say it's your birthday. I just lost it. I just couldn't believe. I said, I'm up here on stage with two of the Beatles, and it was just like a moment that I will never forget. And Ringo himself, he's, well, the greatest drummer in the greatest band that's ever been, but he's just such a cool guy. He's always ready with a joke and a smile. He's very spontaneous, right? In the moment, and very quick-witted, sometimes sharp-tongued, but always in the spirit of fun. And his advocacy and outreach for peace and love is something that I tremendously respect and admire. He's a great person. And
taking you back to that night at Radio City, a lot of our Q104.3 listeners were there and Beatle fans, but for around the world. And you have to believe me, because I was in the audience, I want to know from the stage. I have been to, I don't know, 5,000-6,000 concerts, been to great shows, Stones, McCartney, all the time, every chance I get. Edgar, the sound in that hall, when Paul comes out on stage and then Ringo hits the drums, I have never heard a sound like that in my life. It was the Shea Stadium squeal. Doctors, lawyers, women dressed beautifully are shrieking like 12-year-olds. I thought the ceiling might come down. Mark Rivera, one of my dearest friends in the world, we're, brothers from another mother from Brooklyn, said to me, I've been with Billy Joel. I've never heard that before. What did you think?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And I was just transported. I had no idea what was going on. I was just lost in the moment. And, that's the beautiful thing, which you already have said. To me, that is what music, for me, life is a spiritual quest, and music is the thing that has helped illuminate that path for me. But I always feel that when I'm playing music or listening to great music, at someone else's show, for that moment in time, like all your cares and worries fall away, and there's nothing but that moment. Sports people refer to it as being in the zone. Scientists, like I'm sure when Einstein got E equals MC squared, that moment of realization, and music is that you feel that it takes me out of myself, and I feel that I'm part of something beyond, something greater. The only thing I can compare it to was Woodstock, which really changed my life. But it was that kind of intensity, and I'll never forget. I'll never forget either one of those nights. But man,
Yeah, no,
Ringo, it's just,
y-
what can
you're
you say?
you're playing with Ringo every night. Brian Ray with Paul McCartney's band. I said to him, "Do you ever forget sometimes that it's Paul, it's the Beatles?" He said, "How can you? How can you ever treat it as a gig?" He goes, "This guy is music to me, and
Yeah,
you're there to play the greatest music that the world is starving for, that's needed now more than ever. How can you ever walk on stage and go, nah, it's a gig?" He goes, "You can't. It's impossible. It doesn't, it'll never, it'll never not be." Oh my, every time I've hit the stage, every night, it's been what, 15 years now, I walk out and I get the goosebumps because what we're going to
yeah.
play and who the leader is and who's that guy.
Truer words were never spoken.
By the
That's
way, one of
it.
my favorite, I've learned so much about the Beatles, not from books, but from the musicians who have told me what their influence were, of all of classic rock through 40 years. But one of my favorite stories about Ringo and the All-Star Band comes from your fellow bandmate, Colin Hay. And we've talked a bunch. I said, "Tell me about the first show with playing with Ringo and the All-Stars." He said, "We've rehearsed," or as he was saying, "we had rehearsed, for a long time. And we had it down and down under, and who can it be now? It's good." He goes, "And I've got it. And the first time I'm playing and I hear Ringo behind me, and it just, my first line, I can't get to sleep." And it's like, my whole brain goes, "Oh my God, Ringo is playing drums on my song." And I could feel the blood rush out of my head. And I kept trying to just concentrate. And every line was, "Worrying about, oh my God, it's Ringo."
Yeah,
Who can it be?
yeah.
Oh my God, it's Ringo. And after the show, they said, I'm sorry, I felt like," and Ringo said to them, "It happens to all of them. It happens to all of them." Well, tell me your first experience, that first day. There you are, free ride, Frankenstein, Ringo's your drummer. Tell me about that.
Well, that happened the first time, exactly what you just described. I was doing free ride, and dun, 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 and then it comes in with I look back there and I can't, it's Ringo doing that on the hi-hat. I just flipped out. And just this year, the same exact thing happened when, I played with Ringo in 06, 08, 10, and 11. And, uh, and this year, after the release of Brother Johnny, uh, back then we were doing two songs and there was a solo section in, where some of the guys would come on and do solo songs. I did like Dying to Live, sometimes Stormy Monday, sometimes Fly Away. Uh, but we put Johnny Be Good in the set. And, you know, Steve Lukather starts, and I just like, way down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans. And I look back and Ringo is just like killing it. I mean, he's doing that
The
swoosh
switch.
hi-hat thing that and I have never seen him do that until we played that song. I just, I, I jumped up on the riser with him. It was like, it was, and he really like something about that song. To this very day, when I think of rock and roll, I think of Chuck Berry and Johnny Be Good, and you know, like putting it on the album. I think everybody thought, well, it's so obvious, it's
No,
Johnny
it's
Winter,
Johnny's
Johnny
song.
Be Good,
It's
but
your song.
uh,
It's a Winter Brothers song. That Johnny Be
well,
Good version, rock and roll. It's
you
your
know,
song.
it's
Absolutely.
not only Johnny's story, but it's a story of every kid coming from humble beginnings who picks up a guitar and has that dream of one day becoming a star. And it has special significance for us because in our first band, like we started out together when I was 6 years old, like playing ukulele, singing Everly Brothers songs, and then we
Wow.
put together our first band, Johnny and the Jammers. And there was this huge talent contest in the Gulf Coast area, and called the Johnny Melody Contest. There was an old rock movie, Go Johnny Go, that
Yeah.
had Chuck Berry was in it, and Jimmy Clanton. Anyway, so we entered this the hottest song we knew was Johnny Be Good. So we entered, we played the song, we won, and first prize was you get to make your very own record. So because of that song, Johnny Be Good, and winning that contest, we recorded our very first record, a song called School Day Blues that Johnny wrote at a place called Gulf Coast Recording there in Beaumont. So that song, that's the reason Johnny put the song on his first Columbia album, and it's the reason that I put it on the album Brother Johnny. So there you go.
They built the foundation. My 2 cents, I get asked a lot about rock and history, and the way I sum it up, rather than talking for an hour, I say, look, the people who built the foundation of the house, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Buddy Holly and the Crickets, Fats Domino, all of them, and the king, Elvis Presley, being the king of it. They built the foundation. And to me, the two pillars that hold up the entire house, that every band, every song is built on, are the Beatles and Bob Dylan. And that somewhere in there, you find your place of where that fits. But everything comes from those two elements of singer, songwriter, writing songs from the heart, maybe political, maybe fun, love songs, broken love in its own way. And these guys who are the greatest creators and tunesmiths and could do anything.
That's absolutely true. And we should mention the one song on the record. And this is another example of how these things happen, how things go in a completely different direction than one might have expected. But when I was making the album, I never thought of any particular artist as playing any particular song. I didn't want anyone that played on the album to end up doing a song that they didn't feel passionately about playing. So I would give everybody a long song list. And when it came to Joe Walsh, Joe and I go way back to the 70s when he was in the James Gang, and we used to play shows together. And
I never knew that. Wow.
Oh yeah, we played a lot of shows together, and I think of Joe as a rocker, so I figured he would pick something like Johnny Be Good or Jumpin' Jack Flash, and he totally surprised me by picking the song Stranger, which is it's such an uncharacteristic song for Johnny to have written, and it's one of my maybe my favorite Johnny song ever. But it's like a beautiful pop rock ballad with a really more advanced chord structure than he normally would have, and it has a sensitivity and demonstrates a vulnerability that Johnny didn't usually show. And so I was so surprised when Joe picked that song, and just the genius of and his touch on that song. It has just a beauty and a sensitivity that I never would have imagined. And after that happened, I thought, well, most of you may know Ringo is married to the lovely Barbara Bach, and Barbara's sister, Marjorie, is married to Joe Walsh, making them brothers-in-law. So I thought, well, now that I've got Joe on this track, and they do play on a lot of one another's music, from time to time, and I don't think I would have asked Ringo. I don't know that he plays on that many of people's songs, But I thought, well, maybe the fact that Joe is on there might give make it, give it a better chance of working. Finally, I got up the nerve. I called up Ringo and he said, Edgar, I'll do it for you. And
Ah,
I just
what a feeling that
that
is, right?
touched
Yes, the
touched
heartfelt.
my,
What a
you know,
feeling.
I I I really wasn't expecting him to say yes. But I mean he did, and I thought, wow, what the those spacious fills that it's a ballad that has all that space in it. It was a perfect place for him to, to do all of that. So
See, I mean,
then
you've got
after
him.
that, after that, then we were sitting, Monique and I were listening to the song, and I had put a scratch vocal on there. It was okay. And she just, like out of the blue, she said, Michael McDonald would sound great singing this song. And as soon as she said it, I could just hear like, hello, pretty stranger, that haunting quality that that only Michael has. I mean, it's so instantaneously recognizable. And to me, the vocal on that song is just magical. And like, and you look at that, like, I don't, if it hadn't been for Joe picking that song, Ringo might never have been on it, or and who knows if Michael would have been. But you look at that, like Ringo Starr, Joe Walsh, and Michael
Luke is on it,
McDonald.
right?
You
Steve Lucas
wouldn't,
is on it.
you wouldn't really expect to see those guys on the same album, much less on the same song together.
But you know what? That's what the All-Star Band does. It brings people together. Let's give it a listen. This is Stranger from Edgar's album Brother Johnny, featuring Michael McDonald on vocals, Joe Walsh, Ringo Starr, and the Troops at Q104.3. Okay, now I'll come back with you. Man, Stranger. You have to go find this album, Brother Johnny. It's your tribute to Johnny, but look at all these people who loved him, that meant the world to him, just like we talk about the Beatles, what it means, and to have these collaborations in the All-Star Band. Like you said, Joe Walsh is, as he said to me once, I said, you're on all the albums. He goes, well, your brother-in-law calls you and says, hey, come over and play. What are you going to do? Tell him you're busy? It's Ringo.
Yeah.
Of course you got to drop what you're doing and go. What are you going to say? Like, yeah, no, I know. You have to go over. By the way, it's of all I've met Joe on interviews, when he explained like the first All-Star tour, when he was doing, when he met Marjorie and they got together, and he said, Ringo explains the idea to me. We're going to get an All-Star Band and we're going to learn each other's songs and we'll all take turns and I'll do a couple, but everybody does this. We'll learn each other's. And I said to him, it's not going to work. People aren't going to spend all that time working on each other's songs for what? For one tour? Get a good backline band. We'll each come out, do a couple of hits. You come out at the end. We'll join you with a little help from my friends. We're done. No, I want everybody to be a band and play each other's songs. I said, you're getting big names. Why would they do that? And he said, because I'm Ringo. And I said, oh yeah, I keep forgetting that. If that is the most Joe Walshian Joe Walsh
Yeah.
thing, I was screaming. I was laughing so hard. Yeah, I'm Ringo.
Yeah, it's undoubtedly the greatest model, and that is what I love so much about the band, is that we all get to play one another's music, and I mean, to play those Beatles songs, I never would have dreamed in a million years that I would ever get to play those songs on stage with one of the Beatles.
When you
But
hit that,
getting
your point, yeah,
everybody in that band, and I've been in it a number of years, but we all it really does turn into a band, by the end of the tour, and there's just so much love and so much respect and passion, and it's just like no other musical experience that I have ever been a part of.
And you know
And
what? It comes through so strongly into the audience. We've seen shows, we see people who are professional and they know how to knock out a show, but the true love, the enjoyment that you see on each other's faces, and yeah, it's night after night, but there's true enjoyment watching each other shine. And it's something you don't see in a lot of bands that not that you don't, maybe you don't like the guy or you do, but there's a not a boredom, but we're doing a professional show. I've never felt that any night with the All-Star Band. There's an energy, a love that you guys have for each other that comes to the audience, that comes back to you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there a favorite Beatles song that you love to play when you get to do it?
um, the one I had most fun with this past year was Octopus's Garden.
Ah,
And I've always loved that song. And every year that I played with Ringo, uh, I always thought, why doesn't he do Octopus's Garden? And I evidently Steve Lukather must have talked to him about it. But I was like, I mentioned it to Mark Rivera, and this was the year finally that he decided to do it. And I like, I just when he that little part there, I just I'm getting to play that part. This is so much fun.
oh
It's
man.
so cool.
Edgar, we could go on, and I love this. Edgar Winter, the new album, the album's out now. Go find it, please. Brother Johnny, dedicated to Johnny's legacy. And
And
it
in
was,
case you here's my wife Monique and I with our
oh,
little
congratulations.
Maltese puppy. And this is the booklet. But in case you haven't seen the vinyl, it's this 3D lenticular cover that actually alternates
Ooh,
between Johnny's and my faces.
oh my
Uh,
God, that's so cool.
and it's just like, and all of these childhood pictures, of it's a beautiful package. When I look at this, I get this otherworldly sense of connection. Of course, I'm sure it's magnified by the fact that it's Johnny's image and my image. But everybody I've talked to when they pick it up, and there's no way I can show it to you, but until you hold it in your own hands, you can't really experience what that is. But you know, I I remember when I was a kid and they'd have these little buttons like it would say, I like Ike when
Yes,
Eisenhower, and then
yeah,
and you'd shift it slightly and
right,
it was a frosty glass of Coca-Cola,
right.
and I thought, why don't they do that on albums? And I guess there are other lenticular covers. I think the Stones had one, but when we first started making the record, I had that idea and I said, uh, I'm going to design this myself. I want the cover to be this and only this. This has to be it. And I went to Bruce with the idea, and that's going to be expensive, but heck, let's if that's what you want, you got it. So
It's not like you
there it
said
is.
when you first started, it wasn't about how much money can this make. This was a
No,
project from the heart. And that's why everybody ran to you because they knew it was a project from the heart. It wasn't about, man, can we make a ton of money on this? Well, hopefully you can, but that was never the issue. It was always from the heart. Listen, brothers to me are always connected, siblings, families always connected up there, down here, continents away. But when there's music, when your bond is music, it's so many requests, Edgar, every week. My son who had passed, my wife, the music keeps us together. And pun intended, there's nothing like music, especially beautiful, soulful music, to keep us connected here, there, and everywhere. And I know it in my heart. I know
well, uh, I want to close with this little piece that is something. Uh, One of the things Johnny always had that ambition, that drive, that desire. He he was going to be a star back as far as I can remember. he was Johnny Cool Daddy Winter with the pompadour and the shades and the guitars and the girls. And I was like the quiet kid who played all the instruments. But I remember one afternoon we were sitting up in our treehouse that in the backyard that our dad had built for us, and Johnny was kind of staring up into the branches, and he looked at me and he said, "Edgar, I'm gonna make it one of these days. I'm gonna make it big, and you may not believe it, but one day you will too." And I just sort of, he's just talking.
How old were you? How old were you?
But I guess I was maybe 9.
Oh my God.
He was like 12.
Wow.
Johnny was 12. And that was when we had our first band, Johnny and the Jammers, that I had mentioned. And something about that just stuck in my mind. And I've always thought that no matter how old I get or what has happened in my life, or how far I end up from home, there's one person in this world that will always understand and know what I've been through. And that person is my brother Johnny. And, you know, we had not only that musical bond, but bond of love, of brotherhood, of family, and of music. And, you know, it's, I just want to thank all of our fans who have followed my music as well as that of my brother Johnny's throughout all of these years. We love you all and could never have done it without you. And it's meant the world to us to be able to do what we most love and see you all out there rocking and having a great time. So, you know, peace and love to you all. And don't forget to keep on rocking.
Edgar Winter, thank you so much. If you've never heard a single Johnny Winter song, if you have no idea outside, maybe you just know Frankenstein, go find Brother Johnny. Immerse yourself into this world of beautiful, soulful blues and rock. You're going to love it. Trust your Uncle Kenny. Edgar, thank you so much for your time. I love you so. Peace and love, good health. May COVID not even touch you or Ringo or me or any of us again.
Well, thank you, Ken. It was a great pleasure. And, you know, I hope that this will serve to make some people aware of the record, you know, and it is, as I said, it's just been such an honor and a pleasure to do this. You know, this is the album, I think, it's not the album Johnny would have made, but I really do believe it's the album that he would have wanted me to make for him. So regardless of if you love the blues and you just love music and you love guitar, you're gonna love Brother Johnny. So thank you.
Thank you, brother.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.